welcome. Third go around. Uh, the last time we talked, it was about the rehearsal. Prior to that, it was acting approaches because there are so many, obviously, as most of you know, there are so many that can't cover them all. And they're very subjective and personal. But the performance is seemingly an end point for most, but actually, I believe that in live traditional theater, there's no end point until the final performance, and then probably not then for most actors. Actors continue to process and weigh in their own time what they've done after the curtain comes down and the play closes. During the run of the play, one has asked the question, has one done the work that's required to fulfill the event of the play? Do they even do they understand what the event of the play is? I think most actors that do a considerable amount of work, that performances stays with them, and they ask those questions probably in a conversation all by themselves mostly, just to assess how they did, what they did, and did it live up to their own expectations? Or has one striven to reach a kind of transcendence that some people call theater magic, where the ensemble performance are not about remembering lines or remembering what to do, but are channeling the characters and living fully in every moment, not allowing themselves to be distracted by anything and refusing to be interrupted in any way, shape, or form. You know, whether it be a 12 or 18 or 22 or more performances, the performance is never really set. We're always in the discovery process. It's just a continuance. It's a, a momentum that we start with the first reading and continue through the rehearsal process, through performance, because anyone who's ever done live theater, and most of you have, because I recognize a lot of faces out there, know that even though you have set some things during rehearsal, there is, we're doing this live, and anything can happen. And one has to really think on their feet and stop on a dime and start on another dime continually in live performances because, well, anything can happen. It's a continuous work in progress for the entire company. Yeah? We're always in the process of progress, process of discovery, of evaluating each and every moment of every performance to understand how we're working, how we can bring more truth, honesty, and creative imagination to our performances and tell the story of the play. Tell the story of the play. There's continuous momentum of working together night after night gives the performance strength, brings a certain depth that gives way to an organic quality that in turn creates a kind of truth and authenticity that an audience feels and recognizes. They may not know how to articulate it, but they know when something's working and when a performance or a particular specific actor, as I once heard, I was in the audience, And I once heard somebody next to me say, how do they rehearse that? How do they rehearse that moment? And it doesn't matter what they were talking about. It was just that that audience member, who I don't think was an actor, understood that this kind of emotional depth in a moment, this is not something that you can rehearse. You cannot repeat and land on the same dime all the time. It's something that simply happens because one is immersed in the moment. Usually, performance usually gives an audience a glimpse of themselves and some level and encounter with themselves. It often addresses their concerns and their passions. And that's a big reason why audiences come to the theater, to see a glimpse of themselves at a higher level. You know, the desire of a performance usually is to move and somehow enrich and at times provoke, perhaps even cause an audience to have a revelation in experiencing what happens on the stage. These should be a result of our work as performing artists. This is what should be happening to an audience when they see our work. I'm going to go to questions. Yeah, there's more, but let's just on what I've covered thus far. Are there any questions? Can you help me out there?
If
Yeah.
you have a question, please come off mute and introduce yourself and ask your question and go back on mute, please.
Too soon? Okay. You know, somebody once said there's three kinds of performances. There's the one you rehearse with the director and, of course, the rest of the company. And that's a level that theoretically one should not fall below in performance. What you've rehearsed, how you've established moments and the rhythm of the play, etc. And then there's that one where that guy Murphy creeps in, Murphy's Law, that if something can go wrong, it's going to happen. And again, because we do live work every night, there's a lot that can go wrong. Small things. Much of it our audience doesn't notice because they're seeing it for the first time and may attribute a hiccup to, oh, that's what's supposed to happen. But we all know as performing artists that are in the play that that's not what we intended. That line that got dropped was the audience didn't notice. Hopefully they didn't notice, but the other actors did. And sometimes we land in a very awkward place because of, let's just deem it Murphy's Law. And then there's that third kind of performance, the one that we became actors to do, where everything, and I mean everything, goes well, goes right, is conducive to performance. The lighting designer's plot is spot on. The stage manager is fluid. They're anticipating the sound cues. They're anticipating whatever they need to do so that they're thinking right along with the ensemble of actors, and everyone is in sync. The actors are looking at each other and playing through each other, not to the left or to the right or around. Their listening is acute and they're in, in the moment, moment to moment. And again, our audience, who may not know any of the vernacular of theater, they get it. They are witnessing what some people call theater magic. Those kinds of performances, I don't think happen often where the entire performance is just as close to perfect as perfect can be. In, let's say, 20, 22 performances, 4 nights a week, you may get one, two, mm, maybe three, if you're, call it lucky, because in an hour and a half or a 2 hour performance, again, there's a lot that can hiccup. So those three kinds of performances or types of performances are usually where we live. Preparation for performances, again. I tell this story to my acting workshop a lot. Some of you have been in it, some of you have heard it before, but some of you haven't. There's Lena Horne. Lena Horne did a one-person show that she wrote. Keep that in mind. She wrote her own one-person show, and she was, I think, in her 60s at the time, maybe even 70s. And it was on Broadway. Lena Horne would get to the theater about 5 o'clock. Now, this is an 8 o'clock curtain. It's a one-person show. She gets there about 5 o'clock. She undresses, puts on her robe, makes her tea, does her nourishment preparation, has a little bite to eat at a certain time that works for her. And then she sits down and reads the play from cover to cover, the play that she wrote and rehearsed and has had dozens of performances. She did that every performance. What does that tell you? It tells you that, and again, a one-person show, except for, of course, the band that was with her, because there was a lot of music in it because it's Lena Horne. But this is an artist preparing, leaving nothing to chance, nothing to chance, not taking anything for granted. So again, I'm always puzzled when working with actors who actually believe that 7:30 is when their call time should be. Doesn't work too well, especially if you are one of the principals and have a lot to do. Your call time should be when you get up in the morning. That's when you start getting ready or continue preparing, because if there's those occasions in the middle of the night where you wake up and you're trying to find a line and you can't find, what the hell was that line? I knew it yesterday and I knew it in the mirror and I knew it through all the rehearsal process, but I can't recall it right now. Let me get my book out and take a look. So there's all that continuation, and there is just an endless, perpetual connection with the work. An umbilical cord that should not be cut, cannot be cut. It just comes with the territory. It's what we do. It's what we do. Questions? Comments? opinions, differences. Is that Fred Irving trying to say something? Hey, Fred, how are you, sir? You got to
Please come
unmute
off
yourself.
mute, Fred.
No, I'm just listening. I'm a sponge, and it's always great to. I just want to shut up and listen, and that's what I'm gonna do. I mean, I just everything you say is important to me, and I have to listen on every word. I don't want to forget nothing you say. Thank you.
Fred, let me ask you something since you're there.
Yeah.
Let me ask you something. What was the most awkward experience that you've ever had during a performance?
Wow. Well, forgetting
Or an awkward, and not the most, or any.
just forgetting the line, just forgetting a line, and you're in a part of the play that line is critical because it can change the momentum or the action, and you know it. And for me, the worst thing you do is to harp on that you're forgetting the line instead of just relaxing and calming down and let it come to you. I'll never forget when I was in the Negro Ensemble Company in New York, and my teacher was telling me about Cleavon Little was doing a play on stage in New York numerous times, just like you said. And this one time, he could not remember the line, but he just stayed there and said it and worked through it. And then when he finally got the line, and the audience was with him, they weren't impatient. They were with him. And then when he finally remembered the line, he stood up and took a bow, and they gave him a standing ovation. So, so I didn't get a standing ovation, but just the same that was traumatic for me, because I don't play it. Obviously, it's different from movie and television. You got to know your lines, and if you screw it up, and I think I said something that wasn't in the script, but it was something to say, and it threw off the other actor. You know what I'm saying? And that just unraveled. Not your thing, but it was another thing I had done. It just totally unraveled. So yeah, that for me is to know that line. That's like you said, waking up and not thinking about it. The worst thing is to do it in live, real time. So that's why rehearsal is important, like you said, and all of those things you're saying is important. So yeah, that's what it was for me.
You stood there for a while, you say, and it came to you, huh?
Yeah, I knew enough to calm down and not freak out. That I don't, because when I did that, it pushed the line further and further away from me and out of my memory. And that's what that was at one time when I created a line, which just sort of screwed everything up on the other end. But from being in your class and learning from you, I just knew that just be calm, it'll come to me. And that's the lesson I've learned.
Yeah, relaxation is key. I think probably there's maybe 2 or 3 rules, if you will, to acting. One of them, of course, is listening.
Yes.
If you don't listen, you're not in the play. You're not in the moment. You're not there if you're not listening. And the other is relaxation, because without that, there is no authenticity in what you're doing. The authenticity ends up being a tense person trying to get through something rather than experiencing.
You just said something I just remembered in that moment was listening. I had stopped listening to the other actor. That's what happened. That's why I had that hiccup, because I stopped listening. So that's why I'm listening to you now.
Lee Strasberg, who's accredited at being one of the premier acting teachers, coaches in the United States during the 40s, 50s, 60s, and into the 70s, and part of the group theater way back then, that whole tradition. that changed traditional American theater. His first step when working with actors was relaxation exercises to relieve tension, because tension creeps in the strangest ways, in the strangest places, and they cause the strangest reactions. One of them is to cease listening and just hold one's breath, forget to breathe, even. And he would spend endless workshops dwelling on relaxation, going through relaxation exercises. And it's something that I think every actor probably instinctually knows, if they haven't been in a formal workshop where that's emphasized, they instinctually know that, and at some point come to terms with, I have to do something about this. I have to do something about this. My toes are curling up. I'm so tense. I'm standing on my toe ends, not flat-footed. I got an anal passage that is so puckered up, I don't know what to do, and the rest of it, right? They don't know what to, tension, and just how to breathe, simply how to stand and stand still, but relaxed, so that things can organically function. Important. Anybody else? Awkward situations during performance. Jermaine.
Oh, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
It's funny we're talking about this, because my most awkward moment, I think, was during Birdland with you, because if you remember, there's a scene in the corner of the entire theater where the space is about this big, and then there's people sitting right alongside of it.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, a lot of actors out there, I don't know if they have anxiety, but I kind of have a little anxiety. So if I don't do my real relaxation before, it'll be a hot mess. Like, it'll just be a mess. So when I'm walking across the stage and get on that stage and I turn around, this one performance, there was somebody literally right next to my knee. And then when I turn around, this bar is there, and there's all these people in my line of view. And so the anxiety hit right before I got to the stage, because I saw that one person, and then I turn around, I see all these people, and I'm already supposed to be in the moment, which left as soon as I was like, that guy is too close. So it's like, what you're saying, listening is the ultimate thing, because if I'm, whether it's listening to my, like sensing where the other character is, or just like completely listening to the thoughts that, we have to create for ourselves when we're in the moment. So it's like listening, there's like so many dimensions to listening. It's not just listening audibly to someone else. Like sometimes it's like listening to, or just actually thinking what you need to be thinking in that moment. And that's, I don't know if it's a question or like what, but I'm just like, why can't, like, I know this, like you train for a long period of time, we've trained forever, but it's like those moments still happen.
Yeah. We're human. And this is live. We are human beings, and this is live. And that kind of thing, what you just described, I remember.
We talked about it afterwards.
I remember all of those performances, and I remember that corner, because that repartee that you and Miles, or Train and Miles went through, or you and Marcus went through, was music unto itself. We wanted it to be that kind of bebop scat sense to it. And there are nights when it was singing, and there were nights when just got through that'll work, but I could see the tensions happening. Again, the momentum of the play, momentum of performances, and just how you spent your day. That's why I'm saying, and I'm not kidding when I say preparation starts when you wake up in the morning, if you're in in a play. If you're in a play, it starts when you wake up in the morning and start to think about how you're going to do what you're going to do and how you might do it differently, or how you found what worked and you might want to try to retain that or build on that. All of that is part of the ongoing process. That spot up there with you and Marcus, it's a perfect example of not having to listen, but absolutely needing to listen. Otherwise, the scene goes south really very easily. I thought what helped, just by the way, I thought what helped a lot was when you actually played a couple of riffs on the saxophone. Those of you who did not see Birdland Blue, Jermaine was John Coltrane and hadn't played a saxophone, didn't know how to play a saxophone, but by the time we got through rehearsals, he could play enough licks on it to give a kind of authenticity to Coltrane. And so again, this is a testament to an actor working and what is required. You know, this is not as great a thing as it might seem to be, because this is what we do. This is our job. And this is our art form, is to be able to do that. A lot of people ask me about accents or playing with a dialect, a specific dialect, whether it be Southern dialect or whatever, if you're from Boston or New York or California or Mozambique. How do you perfect a dialect that you know very little about, and trying to sound it out phonetically is, I find, almost impossible to do these kinds of things phonetically. I need to listen to for my own work, I need to listen to someone from that area and start to somehow assimilate all of that. And one of the best exercises I've ever done, heard of, seen is that when you talk to somebody, and again, you begin to prepare when you get up in the morning, when you talk to somebody, especially and mostly to strangers, people who you don't talk to all the time or only talk to once in your lifetime, walking down the street or going to the corner store or going to wherever, if you use that dialect, and they may look at you a little oddly, but you can assess your effect and how you're doing by using it on strangers, using it with people that you know. That is another matter, because that also can become amusing or even awkward. But to work with it continually, something like that, as a part of your characterization, that's one exercise. Others? Hey, William, how you doing?
Doing good, Ben. How about yourself?
Very good, thank you.
Yeah, good. I was trying to, of course, you can't not have these in theater, but I was thinking of the last play that I was involved with, where I had an enormous amount of lines and monologues, and we had a small dressing room. So this was something that I discovered of myself, was that the dressing room was too chatty. And not only that, but I kind of realized that I didn't need to be in the dressing room with the rest of the cast, because my character was somewhat of a loner anyway. So it really helped in my preparation. I picked all my things up, my belongings, and I found me a little corner
Hmm.
in the backstage with no one that could interrupt my thought pattern or distract me. And it took me a long way into the process of the play. I feel so. It really wasn't about being a moment in the play, but just in my preparation before I would get on stage.
Preparation, I think, it's not everything, but it's everything. It cocks the gun, and pulling the trigger is the performance. But again, the performance starts before you go on stage. The life of the character and the life of the story of the play begins before the curtain goes up. So, yes, that I think preparation is just, well, it is everything, because you have to do it.
Mm.
Even in improvisational work, there is a preparation of emptying oneself so that the vessel can receive whatever they're getting and use it.
Mm-hmm.
So, is that Dominica Myers? Hi, honey. How you doing? I haven't seen you in, I don't know, 15, 20 years. How are you?
It's
Nice to see you.
20 years. No, it hasn't been 20, but it's been a while.
Now,
It's been
it's
a while.
been a good 15 at least. Nice to see you.
Yeah, maybe 13. Yeah, it's been a while. I do have a question.
Oh,
Or not so much.
were you
Not so,
done, Will? Let me just, I'm sorry, I just
oh,
jumped.
I'm sorry.
Were you done, William?
Yeah, I was. Yeah.
Yeah, again, preparation. That's what we keep talking about. There's all manners of preparation. I can't emphasize it enough. It will save your artistic life, and it will keep you from getting gray hairs or even losing your hair if you take the time to get ready. So, Dominica, yeah, how are you?
It's been a while, and I've been working in administration and haven't been on stage so much these days. But I have, but this is, it's bringing back a lot of memories, I guess, to talk about performance and preparation and being on stage. And I guess the question I have for you is if you could talk to the group a little bit about intimacy, what your approach is to intimacy on stage as a director, as an actor, and also curious if anybody in the group has been working with intimacy coaches or intimacy directors. I hear that's kind of a new thing.
Yes, it is. Yeah, yeah, and not so new. I guess it's about 3 years old or so, something like that. Formal intimacy directors and formal intimacy coaches and formal intimacy consultants, because most large rep companies have them now. My take on it is, if one is an actor and you're auditioning for a piece of work, unless you cannot find out for whatever reason, the directors, the producers, the whatever is not letting you know what the hell the damn play is about, you've read the play and you know what it is about. You know what character you're probably going to be considered for, and you read the play and understand what is required to play the part, what the playwright demands of the actor in playing the part, and what your imagination as a performing artist could bring to the table and what should be brought to the table. Intimacy. If it's Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, or 7 guitars, or there are certain requirements when Vera says, you touch me here, you touch me here, you touch me here. There are ways to play that scene because Lloyd is standing right there. There's ways to use Lloyd in that scene or not. What works better? You'll find out in rehearsal when you consummate the part with the other actor and go through a rehearsal process. But before that, there are certain requirements that each play has that an actor, if they're worth their salt and do their, quote, homework and know how to read a play and start to understand what's required of the artist that's going to do it, then they sign on to do that. If they're chosen, if they are selected through an audition process by directors, producers, etc. And they say, Dominica, you're going to be Maggie the cat. And that second scene where Maggie's is, what is she doing? She's trying to seduce her husband. She's trying to reconsummate her marriage. And how does she do that? I picked that play because it's such a well-known piece of work, and that scene is a very sexy and very hot scene, and much, much, much more than that because Maggie's in love with Brick, and she wants her husband, and she wants him sexually. She wants him to be, that she wants them to have a real man-woman relationship. How does she do that? She doesn't really succeed, but what she does to get there, or try to get there, is a lot of things. And if you've seen it done several times, there's actresses that cross all kinds of lines that are appropriate and maybe not so appropriate for the theater. Depends. And then all of that depends on how things are executed, of course. So as far as intimacy, directors and coaches, if they serve a purpose and they help the production, whatever helps the production get to be what it should be, is, in my book, permissible. It should be, yes, embraced. But the first responsibility is to the actor to understand what they're committing to. And they need to know that they're going to have to get close. Lovers make love. Enemies fight, sometimes physically. So, yeah, I read a few articles about the intimacy, and it makes sense, but they're talking about people who have to take down walls for whatever reason that they haven't, for whatever reason, have not been intimate. I always give this, and all of you probably know this about me. When we're in the theater, that line there is the lip of the stage. On that side of the stage, in the audience, you got a boyfriend, you got a girlfriend, you got a significant other, fine. But when you're on this side of the proscenium, the only lover you got is the one in the play. And that's the one you make love to. The others don't exist. And if they can't take it, tell them not to come. They need to stay home. I've seen that happen. And yeah, we lost an actor in the Magnificent Dunbar Hotel behind that. Sydney, you'll remember, I'll bet you if I reminded you. Yeah. So again, be careful what you wish for. Be ready. You have to be ready. And you have to recognize and take it as far as you can go. Because you're striving for an organic authenticity. This is what you're striving for. And it's stylized, yes.
Yeah.
You know, you're not crossing into pornography. No, you know, not. But your lovers make love.
Can I say something?
Yes, ma'am.
I just want to add on. I remember a long time ago you talked about, I think you were talking about Meryl Streep and her and another actor about giving themselves permission to be in love. And for me, that just kind of made all the difference in the world, because I remember my first kissing scene at the Roby, a good friend, and I was like, oh Lord, I gotta kiss him, but I got over it going through it. But that mindset of talking to the actor and giving yourself permission. If your character is in love, give yourself permission to be in love and do what people in love do. They hug, they kiss, they show it in their eyes. And yeah, if you got somebody in your personal life that can't handle it, then they better stay the ass home. Because if I'm playing a character that's fully in love and fully, I'm going in. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that word permission is apropos to just about anything we do, Sydney. You know, we have to give ourselves permission to go wherever. Not everybody has experienced the same thing, so we have to give ourselves permission to just experiment, to explore, to take a look and see. There's Meryl Streep, yeah, all of them. Sometimes I suspect that, you know, we hear about, that this is just an aside, we hear about couples who have met in the process and become real life couples after the process, either become lovers, boyfriends, girlfriends, etc., and husbands and wives.
Wife.
What, June?
I was thinking about the Dunbar, and we got Tiffany and Eddie, husband
Tiffany and Eddie, married.
in real life.
And still married.
And
Yeah.
And they still married and happy.
yeah,
Yeah. And it was a result of that. I remember, should I get her some flowers? What did he say? He got her some flowers. And the rest is history. But yes, life imitates art. Art imitates life. So, yeah, it becomes real. It can become real. It can become real, yes. But does that kind of cover your ground, Dominica, about the intimacy?
Yeah, I think so.
It's tricky. I mean, I come from a place where if you commit to this work, if you are an actor and you say, I am an actor and I am going to do this, and with no limitations, no boundaries, I'm not going to just do it for a year and see how things go. I'm not going to do it for 2 years. I'm not going to do it until I'm broke or whatever. You find a way and you have a mindset that I am doing this. And if you cannot do what you audition for, then you need not audition for it, or if you happen to get the part, you need not take it because you feel you cannot do it. But actors, I think, don't go in like that. That's not how they begin. They say yes, not no. No closes the door. Yes keeps the door open and all possibilities are available to you. No stops it. And you might as well go home if you're going to say no. Other people are being careful. They're looking for reasons. They're looking for excuses. I don't know if these are actors. They might be nice people, but I don't know if we can call them an actor. It's a big commitment. It's really huge. It's not sometimey. Anyway, and it can be painful. Yes, it can be painful. Anybody else? Questions, opinions?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
This is Kyle Sparks.
Hey, Kyle.
How's it going?
Okay.
You talk about finding the rhythm of the scene, and I think you're the first acting teacher that I've had who talked about that as kind of a final or one of the last tests of like if you've gotten a scene down. So I was wondering where you got that from, and what it means to you.
Where I got the idea of the rhythm of a scene?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I can specifically say. This is the spot where I started to understand about the rhythm of a scene. Took me a long time to understand that it depends, well, one, on the writing, of course, and then what the actors bring to it. That when two actors or more are in a scene and we're past the painful sort of discovery part of the scene where you're trying to figure out what the hell am I doing and what is my objective, what is my action, and I'm not only talking verbally, rhythm of the scene, but an organic sensorial physicalization during a scene that is a give and take between two people that some of us, I'm sure, have witnessed. And I'm talking about stage now, more than film, because film can be so manipulative and really wonderful, but editors can do magic. You don't even have to have your partner there. You can act to a green screen or to a blank wall or to the camera, and they put it together and it has a rhythm after they finish editing it. It has a rhythm that you did not create. They did. You had a hand in it, but they did. But actors on the stage finding that sensorial, verbal physicalization that becomes the rhythm of the scene is something that happens in a rehearsal process. And it isn't always repeated verbatim each performance, but once you lock on to that there is one to find, it's all in the listening. And not so much seeing, but sensing more than optical. And that means feeling. From feeling what the other actor is doing, about to do, has done, and all of the context, all of the given circumstances that have happened up to that moment. Given circumstances are, you know, in those of you who know me know that that is a large part of how one approaches a scene, a piece of work. You have to know what's happened, because what's happened in the past, everything that's happened, I mean, just in our own lives, everything in our lives has led us to this moment, right here, right now, looking at each other on this Zoom thing. And it is all an accumulation of that. We're all watching each other because we can't get together. None of us can be in the same, basically, mostly, can't be in the same room together. So we are doing this and trying to see one another, seeing one another, trying to get a sense of how we are feeling. Most of us have history with others, and that all plays a huge part in how this scene is played, how we relate to one another, how we go through. I use that term a lot, going through one another. And not just, it's not just audio listening. I mean, you've heard me say this before, but just to illustrate a point, you know, okay, well, I guess what is that guy, that I think is a Jewish comedian, Shecky Green, Shecky, I think that's his name. He's an old timer from the Catskills, and he used to do jokes about his wife all the time. Somebody take my wife, you know, I take my wife, please. You know, very lame stuff by,
Henny Youngman?
Henny Youngman, right. Yes, Henny Youngman. Does all, and that stuff is kind of funny and probably was funnier in the beginning. Anyway, uses his wife as a foil. And I'll use mine. I know what kind of day I'm going to have with my wife by the way she says good morning to me. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I understand exactly what kind of day I'm going to have, whether I should duck, go downstairs and close the door. Luckily, we got it downstairs that I can close the door, or whether or not we're going to be hand in hand all day, not being able to get out of each other's sight, because life is good and we are in love today. Right? Anyone that's been in a relationship for any length of time knows what I'm talking about, because I'm talking about subtext. Good morning. Good morning. Morning. How you doing? What you want? I didn't hear what you said. What did you say? Oh, yeah. I didn't hear what you said, but whatever it is, say it again. Right? All of the above. All of the above. A kind of sensorial work. Subtext. Listening. Yeah, I don't think she's watching, because I'm going to have a strange homecoming tonight if she. June, you're shaking your head. Okay. Oh boy, life and life only, right? Each day is an adventure. So, questions. Was that good for you, Kyle? Did that cover some of that ground?
Yeah, that was a good answer. I was expecting yeah, I was expecting more of like a music, like when you say the rhythm of the scene, I'm thinking like music. I'm like, oh, okay, this is supposed to be like music, and you compared it to editing, which I hadn't really even thought of. But that's like editing and film that brings it together as well. It's all about the cadence and that changes like whether a scene is comedic or if a scene is dramatic. It's just all about like how long of a pause did they take, in between, like from the setup to the punchline. Like it hits differently depending on like the rhythm of the scene.
Well, yeah, well, it's a good point. It's actually a very valuable point that you point out. That kind of rhythm, that kind of setup and a punchline, there is a science to that. There is a real science to that. And it's something that I think you've done a lot of improv work. I think your background is a lot of improv work as well as stand-up. And so you know about that, the value of, obviously, the value of a delivery. And so that is one aspect. The music, well, iambic pentameter, right? Okay, you got that kind of rhythm. And it's not as complicated as a lot of people make it out to be. I've always thought, I did my share of studying iambic pentameter. I never really felt I seized it as much as, quote, let's say a John Gielgud or one of those Englishmen did. But what I always wanted to work for was making sense and having a real organic conversation, even in Elizabethan terms. It must be a conversation and it must be organic. If you get stuck in the ebb and flow of iambic pentameter, there's something that doesn't work for me there as an actor. I get stuck in my head. That's what happens to me. Others I've seen work that and work it beautifully, and it works for them. At the end of the day, whatever works for you is what works, and that's what you should use. Music, we were talking about Jermaine or doing Train and Miles in Birdland Blue, and there was a rhythm to much of those scenes, many of those scenes. The brother who played Nat Adderley, Cannonball Adderley, found it in a way that he found a musical rhythm that became so musical, it crossed a line almost into singing, which lessened the kind of organic flow of two guys talking. You ended up, and it was amusing, and the audience loved it. I saw them, they were laughing, they were receptive to it, but at the same time, communicating the objective of the scene to the other actor somehow got lost and muddled at times in that. So there are limitations to that. And one's instincts, an actor's instincts, and a director's help will, I think, remedy that when one pulls on, let's call it a figuratively leash on an actor to pull them back a little bit from the music. And I know that's not all you were saying, Kyle. I know that's not all you were saying. But yeah, there is a kind of rhythm that becomes music and works. And then there's the other kind. Put it that way. Yeah. We know when something's magical happens. I think most actors of experience, and by I don't mean you have to have a deep resume that you've worked in great ensembles all over the country or all over the world. I think actors who are thoughtful, who are really searching and looking for the best work that they can do, whatever that is, that word is not the best word to use, but you know when you're doing well. You know when you're working and things are working. You know it. You sense it and you feel it. It might not be the same the next day, but when you land on it and it's you and another actor or other actors and the scene just something is happening, you know it. There was his name, there's a guy up in, I worked with at the American Conservatory Theater in San Francisco. And he was part of the company. I was a young actor, 40 years ago. And not Ray Reinhardt. Anyway, I was watching the rehearsals, and there was a bunch of us students. We were allowed to watch the company rehearse. It was part of the training, etc. And they were doing The Visit, Frederick Durmont's The Visit. And about 2 or 3 rehearsals, I saw, his first name was Ray, I can't remember his last name. But I saw him work on the scene, 2-person scene, and then he would get whatever he was getting from the director and the other actors. They talk a little bit or not at all. And then I'd see Ray go over into a corner and sit with his back to everybody and just sit there. And occasionally move, but not talk. And I finally asked another actor, what's he doing? What's going on? And the actor said, he's replaying the scene. He's going through the scene beat by beat that he just did to see what he felt worked and what didn't work, so that he could build on it in the rehearsal process. I never forgot it. I always think about it and use it often in my own work, just reviewing and trying to see what works and what didn't work, and also to see if I could reproduce what did work, because that's not always possible in the work. You can do something, boy, that felt really that was a hole in one, right on the money. That's the way that is supposed to go today. Tomorrow, you're working to reproduce something. That's a trap, because you're working to remember what you did yesterday instead of being fully present here today in this moment with this other actor and playing it. Now, okay, it's a trick bag too, because there are some things that should be repeated. There are some notes that should be struck and be the same. Sometimes it's very tough to hit those notes the same, but you have to work for them. They're designed that way, usually by the writer. If not the writer, by you and the director. And you just have to figure out a way to make it work. And that's what rehearsal process is about. Finding ways to hit those notes through a discovery or through a discovery process. And you can't always. It won't always happen. But if you have your objective in place, you have your action in place, you know what the given those 5 things that I always preach. Objective, given circumstances, objective, action, obstacle, and the stakes, the needs, the need of the scene. What is at stake? Why are you doing this? What do you win? What do you lose? If you don't have those in place, you probably cannot put the puzzle together. You have to make those choices and make them strong. They're your anchor.
Elizabeth June has a question and or comment. Please unmute yourself.
Hi.
How you
I just
doing?
want to say, I love the Roby Theater. I love Ben Guillory. I love all the people that I've worked with and met there. Hi, Sydney. Hi, Jermaine. I think I met Jermaine on the train and told him about the Roby Theater. That's how he heard about the Roby. I just have to say, one of the things I love about working with Ben, and I'm sure all of you who have been in either his class or on stage with Ben, you know this. Okay, before I say that, I'm going to say something that Tom Hanks said, one of my favorite actors, Tom Hanks. They asked him the question, what do you look for in a director? And he said, a fan. Ben Guillory is a fan of our work. Ben Guillory makes you feel like you are the Meryl Streep of the production, but he does that for each and every one of us. You feel like you're Tom Hanks in his production, you know what I mean? And I think that is important when you have a person that is going to be your director, or even if you're taking a class or looking for a class. You need someone who is a fan of your work and you're a fan of theirs. I was so nervous when I had to audition for the class for Ben, and he was like talking to me. Ben likes to talk. So he was just talking to me before I could get to my audition. So he could see on my face, he was like, you're ready to do your monologue, aren't you? I said, yes, I am. Because then after I do the monologue, then I'll sit and talk with you all day. I'm fine. But I was nervous because I'm meeting Grady from The Color Purple. So I just want to say how important it was for him to be a fan of us, because it made me become a fan of everybody in my class with me as well. And a fan of all the 20,000 people that were in the cast of Dunbar. I was a fan of all their work as well. It made a difference when it comes down to the scenes and comes down to your scene partner, to be a fan of the work of the person you're in that rehearsal with. Because you are in rehearsals with these people separately, the ones you have scenes with, other than what we're doing with the whole cast. So that's all I just wanted to say, is to thank you for being a fan. Thank you for being a fan. No. and I just wanted to, just thank you again for teaching me to be a fan of others. That's all. That's all I want to say.
My pleasure. And I am a fan. I love this. I love working with actors. I can't think of anything better to do than do the creative process, go into a room with a bunch of people and figure things out and tell stories.
Thank you, Elizabeth. We have our next question from William Warren, followed by Sydney Davis.
Okay. And you know what? I'm going to piggyback on that, Elizabeth. I totally agree. Thank you, Ben, for being a fan for all of us. It does mean a lot, you know, especially when you're an artist and, you know, that element of being unsure sometimes can undermine what an artist is trying to do. And so when you have someone that's encouraging you and you know someone's there for you, it means a lot. Yeah. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, loud and
Okay.
clear. Loud and clear.
I just wanted, you were talking about rhythms and finding a way to work through something. And you actually got a chance to see Little Foxes. When I was, you know, with all the challenges in that play, just me trying to overcome certain obstacles. Of course, I didn't have a large part, but there was one scene in there where I had somewhat of a monologue, and it took me a while to figure out how to work through this. And it was when I came back in telling the story of what had happened. And it took me actually up until about the first week of performances for it to click for me. And what happened was I figured out that, first of all, my character was a storyteller and that he always told stories to Horace on a regular basis. That was part of their relationship of telling stories and actually probably finding favor by making Horace smile or laugh or whatever. And so when I figured out that in the story, Lillian Hellman's story, that first of all, that period is one of the only periods where it was a comedic break, because I don't consider myself a comedic actor, but I knew that was a comedic break in the story. And then understanding what my objective was coming in was basically to humor Horace and tell this story. It made everything start clicking for me and allow for me to tell it in a way that I was able to find those beats night after night. I mean, they weren't always there, but it did allow me to find those beats because, you know, it was a story it was only between me and Horace, and everything else worked itself out. And so it made me think about that. And I know you had seen it.
So Bill, wait, how did you, or what happened that made you understand what your purpose was? What can you pinpoint exactly what happened that triggered it?
I cannot. I just know that I will say this. I kept reading the play. I read it over and over and over because I was struggling. And it was something that happened, I don't know, between rehearsals and me reading that made me understand that, you know, that's a heavy piece. And everybody's going after everyone pretty much through that whole play.
Yeah.
And so Cal was bringing that light humor for a short period of time in that second act.
Lillian Hellman, yes, she's a monster.
Yes.
Yeah, she's one of those ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a good production too.
It was. We had magic on that production. I would have to say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I would have to say too that Lillian I think fell into, for us, those kinds of parts are difficult for us
Yes.
because again, and this is just the truth. An actor with your skills and with your experience and with your performance experience on multiple artistries, this was, I would consider, almost misusing, if not wasting your talents. I don't think they knew about you, or did they? Maybe you can
No,
tell me. They
no, they
didn't know
didn't.
about your background of
No.
what of the kind of work that you've done, and the whole idea of being a world class artist as in music and all of that. They didn't know that,
No.
and that again, well, there's that part about Eurocentric companies not recognizing or not even bothering, maybe, I don't know for sure, so I'll say maybe, looking at an artist of color and seeing the possibilities, potential because of their experience and because of their skills. And a play like Little Foxes, I did that play, I don't know, umpteen years ago at ACT.
Mm-hmm.
They cut most of it out, cut most of that guy's part out, that character's part out. They weren't interested,
No. Yeah.
Did it as a student. They basically stood there on stage,
Yeah.
The only value was we get to watch other actors doing that up close and personal, I learned a lot that way, learned very much a lot. But as far as value, anyway, but that's that other side of the coin for us, artists of color, working in a Eurocentric world, is that often we're underused and our experiences suffer for it. We do not get to do what we're capable of doing and therefore grow the way we should be growing because we have the same opportunities, which is the reason the Roby Theater Company exists.
That is the reason why I am here. Thank goodness.
And
Yeah.
Ben, I just have to say, I so wholeheartedly agree with that. And, out of all of my experiences, the one place that I really feel like I was never underutilized or all of my talents could be brought about was always at Roby. I mean, I guess that's why I'm here today. It's like, oh, I get a chance to be with Roby and I'm not, in Los Angeles. That's why I'm even here today. It's like, oh, I can be someplace where where I know that my best is here.
So glad you came back around, Dominica. How's your son, by the way?
He's 13 years old and he's sitting over here with his face in a phone.
Right, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, we'll take our next question from Sydney Davis, and our last question will be from Jermaine Alexander. And then we'll have some announcements that you definitely want to wait to listen to, and then we'll let you close it out.
Okay.
Thank you, Crystal. So I'm making a point that I know there is a difference between an actor on stage, being able to do a run and being able to allow the character evolve and are going through the actors. It evolves as during the run of the play, and I love that experience. But a lot of us as actors, we love the theater, but there's also the opportunities in film and television. And then we see a lot of the actors that we love in film and television. We find out they started in theater, and some of them still do theater. So my question to you, Ben, especially since you have experience in all the genres of stage, film, and television. So, how does, in your opinion, the stage actor experience influence an actor and what you can project in the form of film and television, and what do you consider are the pros and the cons?
A lot of pros, not too many cons, because you have to be able to adjust. And I specificity, that word again, means everything. Uh, in theater, there is a specific process and a need for a specific process. And because, again, bottom line, the curtain goes up and you're on. There are no second takes. You're on, you tell the story in a linear fashion from beginning through middle through end, and that works. Television and film, not necessarily so. It's chopped up, but it also, if one is wise, you can use that time to again prepare. I remember doing some daytime drama stuff, and I was like a lot of actors early on saying, "Oh, daytime drama, that's soap opera. What is that? Who wants to do that? I don't want to do that. I want to go and do it. I want to be in a movie. I want to do this and I want to do that. I don't want to do daytime drama. That stuff you can't even." They say the same thing all the time, and it's not written well, and it's all of that. And then I was doing it, and they're doing on General Hospital 2 episodes a day, 2 half-hour episodes a day. And so, you have to be ready. Rarely is there a second take. Rarely is there a second take because they're doing 2 episodes a day. And they are on the clock. And the directors are not looking at your performance. They're in the booth just moving this thing along. And if you can walk and talk, you're in, basically. Yes, but after you acclimate yourself to that and you are in a storyline for a little while, you find, again, Kyle, a kind of rhythm to the work and a kind of way to think about it and approach it and make it work for you. So it's another discipline that at first was very awkward and tough for me. And then I started to understand how to do it for myself, very specifically for myself. It was hard work, very, very hard work. If the storyline and you have a lot to do, you really find out that less is more. That old adage having to do with this work is very applicable for daytime drama. Film, again, what kind of project is it? Because they're all different, aren't they? They're all very, very different. Okay, Color Purple, you got that, right? This is a very complex film because most of the principals age about 35 years within the scope of the film. 35 years, they age. Short story. Had to take my hat off to Stephen because he knew he was out of his cultural element. He knew that from the get-go. And that's why he kept Alice very close to him. Alice was under no, I don't think, contractual obligation to really be a part or more than a kind of consultant. And Alice was there. And I remember one incident where before lunch, we were shooting, and it was 1914 or something. and Ceelie's very young. And then for some reason, Stephen wants to shoot a scene where she's 25 years older. And of course, the makeup people go crazy because they've got to, from breakfast to lunch, age her 35 years. They got about a half hour lunchtime to do it. So who's eating lunch, right? In the first place for that. And Whoopi came up to Stephen. I just happened to be standing there, and she said, "Look, I look too old. I look too old." And Stephen looked at Alice and said, "What do you think?" And Alice just said, "Mm-hmm, she looks too old." And Stephen said, "Okay, fix that." Again, he knew enough to acquiesce, one, to the writer, the original, not the screenwriter, but the originator of the story, and kept her close. And he was a good listener. He was a good listener. And we're talking, what, 1985, right? So what is that? That's 35 years ago. Jesus Christ, So what am I trying to say here? That the different mediums, they require different things. I always think of them as a plus. I came to Los Angeles to do a play. I was invited to do a play, but I wanted to come to Los Angeles to do film and television work. I wanted to do that kind of work. I also wanted to do theater work, and you can do it all. You can do it all. There's no rules that says that once you do this, you can't do that. And there shouldn't be, obviously, because there's no money in theater. In the theater that we do, there's very, if any, little money in black box theater. But this is not why we do it, of course. There's a whole nother fulfillment and value and rewards and all of those wonderful things that you get from the kind of camaraderie and the kind of work that we do in the theater. And television and film, they pay you very well to be ready. I wasn't talking to the director when I was doing the daytime drama. They weren't asking me, and I wasn't saying, what is my character thinking? They pay you to be ready. They audition you, especially in television, and it's a lot of typecasting. And there's nothing wrong with that. They pay you because you're that type and you fit into what they're doing. That's what you bring. They pay you to do that. And of course, it's artistry. You work on it, and it's your artistry. But this is not a wrong or right thing. This is not a bad or good thing. It's not a pro or con. You measure it, and you measure it for what it is, and you prepare the work. And you do it, and you look at it, and you say, okay, that was then, that seemed to work, and you move on. And you get paid. There's that. So it's all good, really. It's all good.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.